The King basically asked MPs in the Malaysian Parliament, there's 222 of them, just who they would nominate as their preferred Prime Minister. 114, it appears, have given their backing to Ismail Sabri Yaakob, who was the immediate Deputy Prime Minister under Muhyiddin Yassin, who resigned on Monday. Now, assuming that that is the result, we haven't actually had a formal announcement, but it does look as if the King will announce that he has become the Prime Minister tomorrow morning.
So, Anne, how much is this going to change things? He's from the UMNO party of Najib Razak, which has been embroiled in graft allegations, and it has been a hindrance. It was a hindrance to the previous Prime Minister. So is this going to make any difference?
Well, look, on one level, I think you could say this is about continuity, the fact that he was the Deputy Prime Minister under the immediate past Prime Minister. He has been a minister in this government and previous governments, and he's been part of the Malaysian government's strategy for handling the pandemic, for the amazing explosion of cases that we've seen in Malaysia. But on the other hand, significantly, he is a senior member of UMNO, that's the United Malays National Organisation, which was ousted so strongly in 2018 over the corruption scandal embroiling then Prime Minister Najib Razak. So this is the first time since then that there has been a leader from that party, even though they have been the dominant party in the ruling coalition until now. So many analysts are interpreting this as effectively UMNO taking power again in some form, even if the party itself doesn't have a majority in the Malaysian parliament. It's certainly one step closer to UMNO perhaps ruling in its own right, and many will be asking if that will be the outcome at the next election, which is not due until 2023, but likely there will be an election once the pandemic sort of eases in Malaysia.
So, and does that remain the greatest challenge facing him if he is elected?
Well, look, maintaining his majority, if you like, will be a key challenge. He has the same razor-thin margin in the Malaysian parliament that Muhyiddin Yassin has had for the past 17 months. Ultimately, he lost that majority, and that's what forced him to resign this week. So that will be a key challenge. Because then you would have to ask who would replace him. But certainly the pandemic really is the ultimate challenge that Malaysia is grappling with at the moment. That's the reason why there won't be an election now, which would normally be the case. The King has said that it is simply unsafe to hold an election now. Malaysia's been in a very strict lockdown since June, even though some workplaces are still operating at about 50%. Malaysia has one of the highest infection rates in the world. Just today, they had another record daily number of cases of almost 23,000. They've had 13,000 deaths. So the pandemic is raging in Malaysia. It's an even higher rate of infection per capita than we're seeing in Indonesia, even if the numbers are much less.
And where does this leave the opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim? He has been hoping to get to that top job. He had thought he was close at one point. Do you think this result effectively ends his chances of ever being Prime Minister?
Look, I think you'd have to say that it does. I mean, yes, as you say, this is a man who's had ambitions to be the Prime Minister for 2 decades or more. He even had an agreement after the 2018 election when his coalition with Mahathir Mohamad took power from UMNO then, and he was given an agreement from the Prime Minister then, Mahathir, that he would take the reins of power 2 years later. Now, it was effectively the collapse of the former government early last year was partly engineered to thwart those ambitions. It was very much a collapse of that ruling coalition just as those 2 years sort of came to an end when people were expecting that Anwar Ibrahim would become the Prime Minister. It was all thwarted. Now, more recently, he has claimed that he does have majority support in the Malaysian Parliament. He even went to visit the King himself fairly recently to demand the right to show that he had a majority and be installed as Prime Minister himself. Clearly, by the numbers we're hearing about today, that's not the case. It seems that Ismail Sabri does have the numbers. And if that is the case, then it's very hard to see that Anwar Ibrahim could come back from that unless somehow this new government implodes in the near future.
Anne Barker, great to get that update from you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.